أكبر الله 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 أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm SAJ Bhatt. Welcome to SAJ Mahal. After an absence of 2 weeks, it was really nice to come back to you live on SAJ Mahal this evening. We have a very special, rather unusual program for you tonight. Hopefully you'll find it enjoyable, interesting, entertaining, perhaps even educational. The name of tonight's program is Nicknames, the Islamic Perspective. As usual, we have a guest speaker, but tonight, more than any other evening, we need our lovely audience's participation. We need you to ring up, share your stories, share your comments, etc. Now, nicknames can come in various shapes and sizes. They can simply be a shortened version of an actual name. Perhaps they might describe the personality, the characteristics, maybe the stature of an individual. They can be totally obscure, unique between individual families, friends, a group of friends, and so forth. So they can be fun, they can be terms of endearment, respect, but also they can be perhaps disrespectful. But tonight we're going to look at this in details and from an Islamic perspective. Now, it seems to me that there's almost a global pandemic with regard to nicknames. It seems that everyone has a nickname. Now, there are some members, particularly the senior members of our society, who are not very keen on these. In fact, they find it really displeasing. They find it perhaps un-Islamic, even blasphemous. So they feel to distort names such as our Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, Muhammad to Mo, or Daniel to Danny, is very disrespectful. So if you're a Icky or a Vicky or an Aki, or maybe an Ash, a Mash, Nosh, a Jav or a Zaf, Nat or a Nad, the list is endless. Maybe an Auntie Sam or an Uncle Taff, Vada Bala, perhaps a Chota Bala, maybe an ordinary Bala, or maybe just simply a Lala. Maybe you are referred to within your family as a Piddi or a Pidda, perhaps a Guddi or a Gudda. Nani Khala, Safi, Safu, Noori, Nooria, I can just go on all evening. So, as I said before, please call us, tell us your stories, tell us your likes, dislikes. Do you think it's harmful to society, or are you not bothered? The live call number is 0161 5299 455. Please call as soon as you're able to. And also this week we also have an email address for you to share your stories with, or if you find that you're holding on too long, you can't stay, leave your number and we'll call you back. The email address is on the screen at the moment, saj@sajmahal.com. Thank you. Okay, right, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our very special guest this evening. Waqas Ali is the founder and CEO of Knowledge to Action, which beautifully translates to Ilm to Amal. This is a pioneering character and life skills development program for young Muslim children. Waqas has over 15 years experience in strategy and leadership development. I'm going to keep his introduction very brief because I know he's got very limited time with us. He's in Birmingham at the moment, Birmingham. Waqas, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the show. So before we go any further, let's go back to the time of our Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. Obviously, he lived life, he had wives, he had children, he had friends and so forth. Take us back to that time, how he would have addressed some of his friends and some of his companions, when he was perhaps in a jovial mood, and just give us some insight into the life of the Prophet with regard to the subject that we are discussing this evening.
Well, I'll begin, inshallah, by saying thank you, Uncle Saj. That's how I've always known you growing up as a kid, and your adopted nephew. I've always known you as the Uncle Saj, so I hope you've never ever taken offense to that.
I should have said I love my nickname, by the way, but I might not do by the end of the evening. Carry on.
So, and I've always used that as an affection towards you, because you've always said it's your Uncle Saj on the phone here, Wakas. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to yourself and to all the listeners wherever you may be, and may the peace and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon you. Since we're going back to the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we're also in and around the birth day of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which just happened yesterday for most people here in the UK. Of Rabi al-Awwal. So I would like to start with a durood, if you don't mind, by reciting salam on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin Nabiyyil Ummi wa ala alihi wa barik wa sallam tasliman kathiran kathira. Subhanallah, where do we start with the courtesy and the adab of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam towards people, and his mannerisms and the way he respected people and made them feel valued? Simply by calling their name. Mashallah, when it comes to valuing people and looking at them in terms of attention, you know that the Prophet ﷺ would give full attention to people, and how he would look at them to make them feel like you have my undivided attention. So we can see from these acts that he made people feel very valued, and that doesn't change when it comes to names. He actually gave his companions, his wife, children around him very honorable titles because of acts or positions that they basically did. And it wasn't just him, the angels or the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the name Siddiq to his companion Abu Bakr Siddiq. He was given that title when he spoke the truth after the Miraj event, where everybody kind of believed that the Prophet could not have done the miraculous journey from Mecca to Al-Quds and to the heavens, and Abu Bakr Siddiq was given that title, the title, the truthful one, because he spoke up. The Prophet ﷺ himself was very, very emotionally intelligent with people. He knew, when to give an honorary title, when not to give an honorary title. The most important thing we learn, just put the nicknames and honorary titles to the side for a minute. We are commanded to name our children and give names, adopt names, which have beautiful meanings, in the aspiration that those qualities of that meaning may, be embedded in the child, or they may be inspired to follow the footsteps, for example, of a prophet, Ibrahim or Musa. That's the the wisdom behind those meanings. Is one of the rights of a child is to be given a beautiful name with a good meaning.
But this is the heart of the matter, really, for those who object. Say, we give our children, we are asked to give them beautiful names, Islamic names. We do that, and then the friends or other members of society distort those names.
Okay, so yeah, absolutely, and I was just coming on to that point. So that's the first thing, is where the names and the sort of rationale in Islam about the names we adopt and we give to our loved ones. Particularly, I was talking here in the context of a father to a child. And what happens is those names then, eventually along the life's road and journey in life, they get shortened and changed and so forth. Now you can get some really good meanings, good names, affectionate ones, and they're done with the best of intentions. And then you get some ones which are basically verbal abuse, and they're basically those which are derogative nature, or they're basically reducing someone, or diminishing someone's value because they're hurtful and they've been coined for that purpose. The names that, to put it very simply, the names that have a good affection or a good intention, or they mean well and are acceptable by the person who's given to, they're absolutely fine. And we can see examples. If you want to see evidence from the life of the Prophet ﷺ, there are countless examples. I'm just going to narrate 2 or 3 to pick them out, to show you why it's absolutely fine to do that. And culturally speaking, like you said, I think you nailed it on the head when you said some of the elders find that disrespectful. certainly when it comes to names of prophets, like Maud for Muhammad is deemed quite respectful because the most beautiful name is the name of the king of both worlds, you know, in terms of basically he was given honorary titles by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, and to shorten that for whatever reason it can be seen as disrespectful. But other names, for example, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sometimes called his wife Aisha Humaira. That was a name that was given to his wife. Aisha was given an honorary title. So that's the first thing we're seeing is honorary titles are absolutely fine. I think Uncle Sarge is one of the best footballers of his time, right? So I can give you something like I can say to you, Uncle Sarge the Majestic, or Uncle Sarge the Legend, right? And that's out of affection and value for your contributions, your sacrifices, your accomplishments. Humaira means the one with I think the red cheeks, because when she would blush, the one with the pink cheeks, pink cheeks. When she would blush or she become shy, she would often, her features was mashallah ta'ala, she would get basically pink cheeks, and the Prophet would use that as an affectionate one to call her that as Umaira. And another time, it wasn't an honorary title, but it's narrated that he shortened her name from Aisha to Aish, out of affection. To show that we have a casual, informal relationship, we have a personal relationship here. The formalities are, you know, dropped, and we can be on that level. So that's absolutely fine as well. It's permissible to shorten the name from Sajid to Saj. Where you got to be cautious is the names like the Anbiya alayhi salam that I mentioned in the Quran. You mentioned Daniel, Muhammad, Ibrahim, Ibi, and these kind of things. You've got to be sort of very courteous and respectful to prophets. Equally the same for his companions. We see the Prophet ﷺ giving honorary titles to Abu Bakr Siddiq. He called him Atiq because it was mentioned in one of the narrations about him being Atiq. Ali Murtaza is a Persian name given. You know, sort of the one who basically is conscious of God. I think the entire meaning that Abu Turab was given to Ali radiallahu anhu because he was a father of soil, only because the Prophet ﷺ saw him covered with dust lying in the masjid on one incident. So he called him Abu Turab, which means the father of the soil. The famous one is Abu Jahl, which was a name that was flip side, not out of affection, but out of dishonor, given Abu Jahl because he was the father of the ignorant, or father of ignorance.
Which we still use nowadays if we're referring to somebody who's ignorant.
And that's something that's, you know, being given to him. Equally the same, we see a positive version of Abu Huraira. Now, many people don't know Abu Huraira was not his real name. Abu Bakr Siddiq is not his real name. So what we have there is that they're given honorary titles because of their accomplishments. And Abu Huraira is basically what it means is the father of the cats, or the kitten. He had a kitten, and he was given that thingy because he had affection for cats. So Abu Huraira is given.
Waqas, can I just interrupt you? Very rude of me, but we're going to have to do this. We have a live caller who wishes to either ask a question or make a comment. Who's calling, please?
Fine.
Assalamu alaikum. Harun Zaman here.
Harun, thank you very much. Nice to hear from you. Welcome.
Salam to Waqas Ali. I haven't seen him for a long time, mashallah.
Right. So what would you like to ask or make a comment on, brother?
The religious names that carry the name of Ali and Muhammad, and giving the characteristics of the prophets and the Ashaba, etc., I'm sure it enhances their personality too. In Western society, we cut the name down to Mo, etc., but take the name of Muhammad Ali. Was that ever compromised? Name of Muhammad Ali, the boxer. Leave that with you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, Waqas, what I'm particularly interested in is, and you have experienced this, you circulate and travel. Oh, another caller. Right, must stop. Yes, go ahead. Who's calling, please?
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I'm Dr. Muhammad. I'm speaking from Birmingham.
Dr. Muhammad Sahab from Birmingham. Our guest speaker is at the moment in Birmingham as well. Go ahead. What would you like to say?
First of all, I would like to congratulate all the Muslims on Eid Miladun Nabi being celebrated all over in the Muslim world, and it's the happiest occasion. And I was very pleased to see that even Sikh community in Pakistan I was seeing some news item that in Nankana Sahib, even Sikhs joined in with the Muslims in celebrating Eid Miladun-Nabi, which is a very good sort of religious harmony that other religions are also joining in with the Muslims in celebrating our Eid Miladun-Nabi.
Yes.
So it was a very good, I saw it in the news.
Do you have a particular question or a comment specific to the discussions this evening?
This is a very happy occasion because, our last prophet, we are celebrating his birthday, which is being celebrated all over the I was seeing a news item in Pakistan is being celebrated in all the cities.
Thank you, Doctor.
And even our Prime Minister joined in with the celebration, and he gave a speech in his honor, which is a very good example he has set.
Thank you very much for that. Doctor, what I wanted to ask, perhaps you can comment, but Vikas in particular, is obviously living in this country, and you've alluded to it, multicultural society, quite often the host indigenous community shortens our names because for convenience or because they find it easier. And then how, Vikas, do you think we can, it's a difficult situation for us if people want them to correct them or for them to pronounce our full name. I mean, Mohammed is a classic example, obviously. There are lots of other names as well, ladies' names, male names. Ibrahim, you've alluded to the short Ibi. How can they go about in a very nice, sensitive way, tell the particular individuals that they would rather prefer them to speak their full name?
It's a good question because we live in a society where that's going to be very common, and it is common. I've had probably about 12 different versions of my name. Somebody even called me Steve one time. I don't know how they got to that one. I received a call once, and this is a flip side to your question. I received a call once, and it was from someone called Joe Islam. Joe Islam. Joe Islam, Joe Islam. So as I'm speaking to and brother said, Assalamu alaikum, brother, and this talking. I said, what's your name? He said, Joe Islam. I said, can you spell that for me? J-O-E, Islam. So I said, I'm a bit confused as to, it's a beautiful name, Joe Islam. It looks like Joe, better than Joe Bloggs, is Joe Islam or Joe Muslim. And he said to me, I'll tell you when I meet you. And then 2 days later, we had a meeting, and he said, my real name is Jihad Islam.
Right.
And I've shortened it because of the negative connotations around jihad. And this was after 9/11. I remember just thinking, but the way he explained to me, as a Muslim to a Muslim, it's no different in, I think, just basically having a very open and honest conversation. I think what I find is I find a lot of the non-Muslim community, be that white males or be that other people from other religions, I find them very open-minded to understand culture. I like that. And I think people need to stop worrying or fearing, having a fear that it might be offensive and you need to not, be scared of speaking up. So I think a conversation just to explain about, in Islam, the names carry the value, they carry intrinsic value, they're really good meanings, and these names are given to honor us by our parents. And I'd like to be, if it's offensive, then stop it. If it's not, then,
So what you're saying is we should have more confidence, we should have more pride. And you're absolutely right. In general, the host community, the indigenous population, is very much open to education and learning. If we took the time to educate them and relate to them the reasons behind our names or why we want to have them say our full names, if indeed that's what we want, then quite often you will get a positive response.
Absolutely. There's something I'd just like to answer to what Uncle just mentioned on the phone there, and again, it was really good to see hear his voice and also see him on the previous programs. His question was about, was the name Muhammad ever compromised, and he gave the example of Muhammad Ali. Now, I think it's a very, very good question, because in this context of looking at how important are names, we're talking about shortening Muhammad to Mo. In the life of Muhammad Ali, for those of us who've been to Hollywood, will know that all the names of the famous stars and celebrities, they're on the tiles of the floor.
Very good.
But when it comes to Muhammad Ali, his name is on the wall, not on the floor. Out of respect for the Prophet ﷺ, say that you can't stand on this thing because I'm carrying the name of somebody who is the greatest or who is the greater than me. And I think that's a very good example to Harun Uncle's question about that's the time where it could have been compromised, and it wasn't, and that's because he was very conscious of the weight of this beautiful name of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
But not all of us have his confidence or maybe even conviction. Perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely comes down to confidence.
Yeah, good.
We need to, we need to be comfortable in our own skin about our identity. I think this is the key. I mean, a lot of the work I'm doing and the focus groups that I've been doing with young people here in Birmingham today, it's been around identity. Who are you? What are you? What do you stand for? And you start with your name. And if you don't have respect for your name, how can you expect other people to have respect for your name and value for your name? So it really comes down to your self-worth and you being comfortable in your skin, and that starts with your name.
Okay, very good. Okay, so any other, so we talked about obviously the positive aspects of the nicknames that you related to. Are there any incidents that you've come across where perhaps things haven't quite gone well and there's been negative incidents with regard to the calling of names or nicknames?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, bullying in schools and the work that I do with young people, and once upon a time, God forbid if our next caller is one of my victims from school, that's calling up and saying, this is what I was known. I was actually really bad at school. I don't take any pride in this, but I'm going to share this because it's something of the past, and I'm only able to answer this question on experience. I know you can't. No. Don't let this deceive you, but yeah, back in the day, I was a bit of a rebel, and I had the confidence and the gift of the gab, maybe because I was quite small in size, and I had a sharp tongue or a big mouth, and I thought the only way I can really defend myself is if I use my tongue to put the big guy in his place. But on a serious point, it's not, I'm talking from experience here where, yes, we don't even have to look at famous celebrities, we don't have to look at famous people, we can just look within our own lives and the people that we've either met or we've journeyed with so far. Absolutely, there's hundreds and hundreds of examples. There's probably more examples of negative name calling than there is actually of the positive titles that we give. I mean, how many of us give honorary titles to people in our community, like the Prophet ﷺ did to his companions, out of affection, out of value? How many of us do? That's a question for us to ponder over. That as a community, how many of us actually follow in the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ with a positive mindset and acknowledge people with positive honorary titles or affectionate short names? Compare that to how many of us give derogatory names and nicknaming to belittle somebody. And I think we'll all be able to say that, well, in most of our lives, it's actually the latter that is more common. So yeah, there's plenty more. I don't want to mention some of the names that I've named people, and I've actually done my best to go back to those people and say, forgive me, I was a mischievous lad, and I found Islam, and alhamdulillah, I've learned my lesson, and we should refrain from this and any hurt that's been caused.
So I want to prompt our viewers again, because really I want to hear from our dear viewers of their experiences. Any parent who's given their child a beautiful Islamic name, yet find that this has been distorted and they are unhappy about it. Or furthermore, I know, for example, a friend who we gave a nickname, and it was a funny nickname, and we enjoyed, all of us, that nickname for many decades. As we've grown older, he's told us that he no longer wants to be called by that name. And of course, we respect that. So again, we want to hear stories where perhaps people have had a nickname for many years, but they no longer like that name anymore. Or maybe there are names that they do like and they want to maintain them. I want to share a scenario with you, Vikas, because this is quite unusual, and this is the kind of thing living in this country can happen. Now, I need to be careful how I say this and word this, because I'm sure my wife will be watching. But this can only happen in this country, and I'm sure no Muslim sister would address me like this. But as part of obviously my business, you deal with all kinds of people. We have a particular supplier who I would ring up. And now this lady, Lynn she's called, I've never met her. This has been, you know, dealings for 10, 15 years. Quite often I need to ring and order stuff or pay for stuff with my credit card. And this is a typical English Yorkshire lady addressing in a natural way, I'm sure to hundreds of other people, not just me. But, you know, yeah, okay. Just very quickly, she would say things like, good evening, sweetheart. How are you? How are you, my love? Right, chick, are you done now? I mean, that kind of thing is only coming from an English lady. Now, it's harmless, but I mean, the Islamic view on that, I would be interested to look at that. But I've got a caller coming, so we'll come back to that shortly. Right, who's the next caller, please?
Oh, hello. Good evening. This is Mrs. Malik.
Oh, good evening, Mrs. Malik. How are you? Thank you for calling.
I'm all right. No, thank you. Yeah, just first of all, congratulations. Every week, look forward to watching your show. Lovely topics that you are covering, enjoying every one of them. And this evening, yeah, just this evening, I've arrived late, so I've caught up, so apologies if you've already covered this. Mine was just out of curiosity, just wondered how some of the younger generation parents, when they're choosing a name for their newborn baby, when they're choosing, do they give it a lot of consideration as to how that name may be pronounced?
What a good question.
Well, I'm only asking that because years and years ago, when I was the name that I chose for my daughter with a lot of love and really, really wanted to give that name,
yes.
I found when I used to take her to the health clinics or the hospital or anything, the name sounded nothing like what the name, and you could clearly see the nurses and everybody was struggling with the name.
Yes.
And I just wondered, as we've gone through, I'm an older parent now, but I just wondered now when younger parents, do they actually look into that how that name is going to be pronounced once they get to school?
That is actually a very, very good question. I mean,
brilliant. I look forward to some of the answers coming into that one.
Thank you. I quite often think about Zulkarnain, you know, what a beautiful name, but the pronunciation and the spellings, I can imagine. Vakas, over to you. Do you want to give us some thoughts?
Mrs. Malik, thank you very much for a very pertinent question. I think I can speak from personal experience here. So when my first child was, I had a daughter, alhamdulillah blessed me with a daughter first off. And I didn't know this. Obviously, we didn't find out the sex in advance of the child. But we were drawing up names as to what we would like to name this unborn child. And we picked two names. One was Sumaya, and if it was going to be a girl. And I wanted Saad. So the name Saad as in the name of the Sahabi. And I wanted that because Saad bin Waqas or Saad bin Abi Waqas is the full name of the Sahabi. And it's very, very rare that we find a Saad bin Waqas in this country. Right? It's very, very rare that we get the name Saad, the son of Waqas. And I just thought, well, I've got a head start here because I am Waqas. And if I have a son, I'm going to call it Saad. So anyway, I said this to my wife. I said, I'm going to call it Saad, and inshallah, if it's a son, we'll see. And she said, what Mrs. Malik said there, she said, well, you need to consider how Saad is going to be pronounced in the playground, because the non-Muslims are going to see his name as Sad.
Yeah.
If it's spelled S-A-D with apostrophe, Ad with an Ain, or if it's going to be S-A-A-D, you need to be very, very careful and mindful of, the name Saad and being pronounced. And I thought that was a very, very good point, that we're living in different cultures. And that's one angle of seeing the name of how it would work in a multicultural society. I don't know if Mr. Malik was alluding to that point about how the name in Arabic is translated in a multicultural point. That's the way I'm seeing it. Of course, people should give full consideration to how this child will carry that name and what their life is. That's their identity, and you're labeling them from offset, which is the right thing to do. But they've got to live with that name.
Yes.
So absolutely. I've got a funny story on this, and I don't know if you've got time on this, but my name, as you can
carry
see,
on.
You know my dad.
I know your dad, mashallah. You were talking earlier about, Vakas, very quickly, that you were quite a rebel and you had to fight your own corner. And of course, I know your father very well. And I was going to introduce you as a young man, but then you told me you turned 40 only a couple of days ago. And I thought, if Waqas is 40, how old does that make me? Because I remember the day you were born. So anyway, back to your dear father, Hafiz Ali Sahib, who in himself was a really good footballer. He was a small guy, but boy, did he tackle hard. So yes, please carry on.
Well, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So, I mean, my name is quite unusual spelling. It's got a U in, as you can see on the screen, it's A-U-S. I've had to carry this name with me for 40 years. Yes. And it baffles people when, when you're on the phone, when you're filling in forms, when people are typing an email to you. Firstly, grammatically, after the Q in the English language comes the U, not the A. Yes. And anyway, so the story behind what course is, I asked my dad, I said, why did you put a U in my name? Because all the other Waqases either have a double Q or a, double, they're done with a, rather than with a Q, they're done with a double K, A-S. Well, this is like a really unusual spelling. And for the best part of my life, like from the childhood, I was annoyed that I had this weird name that people couldn't pronounce or spell. I was getting confused myself with my own name, in terms of spelling, because you know one thing in the English language and then you look at your name. My dad tells me the story that, well, when you were born, your name was actually Nadeem.
All right.
So he went to his teacher, you might even know his teacher, Qari Dawood Rahimullah, the late Qari Dawood, who passed away. Yeah. And Qari Dawood said, well, actually, I see different qualities in your son. I'd like to change his name from Nadeem, from the Damat, to Waqas. Really? Waqas is so this is a story that my dad gave. I'm not going to start giving the reasons and blow my own trumpet in why Qari Dawood, his teacher, chose the name Waqas for me. I'm questioning the spelling that my dad gave me of that name. And he said, well, one day I was confused about how to spell your name.
Okay, Waqas, just hold it there for me. Sorry to interrupt again. We have another caller. Please, who's calling, please?
Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Sajjad. My name is Mubashir Zaman.
Mubashir, mashallah. all the way from Qatar, I believe.
From Qatar, indeed. Qatar. Just picked up your episode here talking about nicknames, of which I've had many. Just to take part of your conversation here, just want to say a quick salam to Waqas as well. Long time no see. But
just remind you, Mubashir is the son of brother Haji Arun Sahib earlier. So you two know each other probably since you were kids. Right.
Absolutely.
Carry on.
Playing together.
Carry on, Mubashir. Thank you.
So no, very interesting topic here. I mean,
thank you.
Like, I just wanted to give my contribution here. Growing up with a name like Mubashir in the community that we grew up in the Northwest, it wasn't the easiest name to be said at school. I thought so it was, but I got many variations growing up. Nicknames were, again, plentiful. But actually, I managed to get it down to one of Dad's suggestions, actually, which was Maz. So that comes from my initials, basically. It's Mubashir Ali Ahmed Zaman. Now, the reason why I wanted to just share this with you is having moved to the Middle East, working in television myself for a network, that has been quite interestingly to hear the meaning of my name out here, Mubashir, is live. So it's actually quite nice coming across to this side of the world and hearing my name on the TV as Mubashir. Was all there on tags and everything. However, my nickname, which I had adopted for my Western friends back in the UK, now here actually caused more problems. Not so much problems, but conversational issues where you'd give your name and you'd have to explain why Maz applied here. So I'm quite liking this topic of yours today, because the reason why I chose Maz growing up was to make life easier, obviously, in conversations with the local population in the UK. But actually, that's continued over here in something when actually I should have just adopted my own name.
Wonderful. Mubashir, really nice to hear from you. Thank you very much for taking the trouble to ring. It's been really nice to hear from you. Thank you once again.
Show's doing really well. Wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. And keep ringing, keep watching our shows. Your contributions are really appreciated. Waqas, before I go back to you, actually, you must know this, but I don't know, you mentioned Qari Daud Sahib, who recommended to your father or advised him to change your name from Nadeem. I don't know if you're aware that he actually did the same to your father as well, because in the early days, your father had a different name. We grew up with the name of Benares. But Qari Daud Sahib advised him that this perhaps wasn't the most suitable name and changed it to Muhammad Ali.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I thought it's best you say that rather than me saying that.
Well, I wasn't sure if I should say, but I don't mind.
No, he's fine with it. You know, my dad, he's laid back and chilled out about these things.
Yes.
But yeah, he had a name Benares. Absolutely, he was called Benares for a good part of his life, childhood, and then he took Benares. Actually had a negative connotation, and it was also from a Hindu. Sort of heritage.
Benares is a holy city, but
it's a town. It's a town, yes.
Not for Muslims. It's the Hindu holy city.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely a city. And so his teacher found him with this name and said,
Mashallah, beautiful name.
And he was called Muhammad Ali. So yeah, well, there you go, alhamdulillah. And we've never called my dad Mo. He's always said, pronounce the name.
Actually, Mo is quite a recent phenomenon, isn't it? I mean, if you think about it, I mean, we've grown up with many Muhammads, but it's quite recent that you've got this, this, I mean, I described it as a global pandemic, but it seems that these shortened nicknames, etc., is a fairly recent phenomenon. Although, I mean, I've been with my name for quite a long time. I mean, Mubashir mentioned his name in Arabic. Mine, I didn't realize till I went to the Middle East. Saj is actually a form of bread in Arabic. So there you go.
Do you know, on this point, so as I was telling you about my name, very quickly, 2 points. Yeah, so spelling, it's got an A-U-S on there, but I'll also tell you what the actual meaning is, and it's really important. The point I want to get onto is quite important. You can see from Mubashir's point and your point about when we go into the origins of our name from an Arabic perspective, because most of these names are either Arabic, Persian, and some of them might have, sort of Urdu, Uttar Pradesh, Indian sort of roots, like my dad's, for example, in Benares. So it's really important for us to go back into the roots of our name and the meanings around them. But on my name, AUS, my dad took a consultation. So after his teacher told him that, change your name, son, to Waqas, because of the Sahabi, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, who was he was given the honorary title of Faris al-Islam, the first knight of Islam, because he was the one who was a warrior and he fired 3 arrows in the first battle of Islam. So he was given an honorary title, Faris al-Islam. I love the name Faris. But my dad went and consulted his solicitor, Eric Smith. I don't know if you remember Eric.
It's just on this road, actually. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. So Eric, he was little Eric. He was always like smoked like a chimney, and he's passed away now.
Yes.
So my dad consulted him and said, "You're the solicitor here. What name should I put on his birth certificate? How should I spell his name?" Right. He said, "Eric had a hearing aid and a hearing problem." He said, "What's his name again, Ali?" And he said, "Waqas." And he said, "Oh, that sounds like the English word because." Right? So why don't you call him, why do you spell it like Q-A-U-S? A-U-S is where it came from. So I've had to live with this story for the rest of my life. And again, coming to being comfortable in your skin with your name, I've counseled myself to accept this name, and I've used it for positive connotations. So I use it. This is going to be really, really cheesy, but I'm going to put it out there. For anybody who's uncomfortable with their name.
I've had a text from a gentleman who says his wife is called Navida, and his nickname, his pet name for her is Sat Nav. That's because he never knows where she is. So thank you very much.
I love it.
We won't.
Thank you for bringing a smile to our face, and
So there you are.
Sorry for laughing out loud to your wife, Navida. Sorry for laughing out loud, but it's quite funny thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
On the name actually means Waqas. It might be the name of a Sahabi, but the actual name has a meaning, and it's only when I, like yourselves and Mubashir, I went to the Arab world, and in particular, I was in Palestine, doing some aid work, And one of the sheikhs there said to me, I love your name. And I said, oh, it's the name of a Sahabi. He said, no, it's actually got a beautiful name, meaning to it. And I said, oh, do you mind telling me? Because nobody's ever told me what my name means.
Really?
And he said, it's the net that's used to catch lions and lionesses.
Really?
I got very excited when I heard this, and I used this in the interview with my wife. She said, oh, your name is very unusual spelling. And I said, the U is there to remind you that it's unusual or unique. But the meaning is that wakas is a net that's used to catch lions, or in your case, lionesses. That sounds very, very dodgy and cringy, but I'm just giving an example of why it's important for us to know about the name and the meanings of our names.
Of course, yes, absolutely. Right, there's a bit of retaliation going on here because I mentioned earlier that this gentleman whose wife is called Navida, he refers to her as Sat Nav. She is retaliated back and texts that she calls her husband lastminute.com because he always does things at the last minute. So obviously a really loving couple there who have pet names for each other, mashallah. Right, okay. So Vikas, we were expecting another speaker to join us, but I don't know if there's been a problem so forth. I know you were in a rush, you had to go up, but if you can stay with us a little bit longer, that would be extremely appreciated. But if you can't and you need to go, then I respect that as well.
I have a couple of minutes because I have a colleague who's waiting for me in the car to drive up the M6, and we've had a long day since 5:30. I would love to stay. Do we have a couple more minutes? I mean, if there's any questions or any other areas to explore, I think.
I was hoping for a few more callers to ask. Okay, right. But it seems as though we haven't got any other callers.
Can I tell you a story? Can I tell you
very
one
quickly,
incident?
because Mash, we do have our other speaker. So very quickly, yeah, go ahead. And then I know you need to leave. I'll thank you now because I really appreciate the time you've given us. You've had an absolutely hectic day, and I'm aware of it. And then you need to get back. Are you coming back to Pendle this evening?
I am.
Right, go on then. Give us your story quickly and then off you go.
Very quick story. I was traveling in Trinidad Tobago about 5 years ago, and I came across a parrot out, in a cage.
Not a pirate.
A parrot. Not a pirate, a parrot. Inside, in a cage as they are. And I asked the owner, what's the name of your parrot? And he said, it's called Sumaya. And he had a goat that was called Ruqayya.
Okay.
Sumaya, for those who are not aware, is the name of the first martyr in Islam. It's a very honorary title. I've given that to my daughter.
Yes,
Sumaya, radiallahu anha, may Allah be pleased with her. And so I thought that was a bit, so he was unaware. He wasn't actually aware that we can and can't do this to animals. You can't name animals names which are basically of significant, honor. And the second one, his goat, Ruqayya was a daughter of the Prophet ﷺ. That was the name of his daughter.
Yes.
And again, going back to your earlier point about how we can counsel people, he wasn't aware at all. He was quite ignorant on those names, just like the sound and the tone of those names. I remember sitting with him over a cup of tea, changing the names, telling him that you need to be very mindful of this. He said to me, can you name my parrot and my goat for me?
Okay.
So these are examples of how we can affect change.
Muakas, thank you so much. We loved having you on. Thank you for your contribution. We're going to have you back at another time when we can talk more details about your area of work. So thank you again. Have a safe journey back. And I'd like to now welcome Mashouk Hussain. Hopefully he's on the line. Mashouk, are you there?
I am.
Oh, good evening. Better late than never, as I say. I know you've had a very busy schedule as well. So straight to the, you need no introduction, Mash. You've been with us before. Hopefully our viewers are familiar with you. But straight to the point, obviously you have a nickname. Ever since I've known you, we've always referred to you as Mash. First and foremost, do you like your nickname?
Not really. It reminds me of potatoes, to be honest. So I acquired it at school. But
sorry, it reminds you of what?
Potatoes.
Oh, all right. I never thought of that, actually.
I used to get called that.
I never thought of you as a potato, but okay.
Yeah, mashed potatoes.
All right. Yeah, four mash gets smashed.
Yeah, I acquired the name at school. So I mean, you know, I've got used to it over the years. So it's more like a product than a name now.
Right.
Because
Okay.
wherever I go, it's mash,
Yeah.
mash, mash, mash. So it's yeah, used to it
So
now.
would you? I mean, if you could, would you prefer it if we didn't call you Mash then?
I don't know what else you could call me. I mean, a lot of people call me different things, you know, which I
No,
can't say on
respectable. I
air.
mean, Mashouk obviously is your name. Yeah.
I think my mother, God rest her soul, was the one who used to call me Mashouk.
Yes.
Mothers always do. They always call you by their full name.
Especially when they're telling you off.
Yes. Apart from that, not many people call me Mashouk. They just refer to me as Mash.
Yes.
And I think people have got so used to it now. It just, you know, rolls off the tongue.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, Mash, you've come on and you've ignited a really beautiful memory in my mind, which I like to share with you and the audience. Your older brother Maruf, we go back a long time, even longer than you. And this story, believe it or not, goes back to 1974. Can you believe that? I mean, 74, what? I would have been only 15 or 16, I guess. And these are the days when there were no color TVs, and the TVs we had were probably 20-inch or 22-inch, not these OLED
super duper things,
75-inch wall mountable, so forth. Anyway, 1974 was the year of the World Cup. 1970, the previous World Cup, Brazil had won it with probably the greatest football team that's ever been. 74, the Brazil side wasn't pretty good, but there was one player we saw, and I mean, you got to go back. In those days, fullbacks, particularly English fullbacks, their job was mainly to just stop and launch it, you know, defend, kick it into the 60th row, have a bit of a breather. There was only one ball and so forth. So that was a typical English fullback. And we saw this player, Francisco de Mourinho. That was his name, Francisco Mourinho. And we'd never seen anything like it. I mean, you know, he was skillful, he was tall, he was blonde, the way he swayed, the way he moved, the way he ran, tall, 6'3" or something, scored goals. And your brother and I kind of fell in love with him. I mean, we used to play football regularly in the Farmhouse Biscuits car park and our little Wembley. And so whenever he came on, we used to ask, did you see him? Did you see what he did and so forth? And just like kids would do nowadays, you know, if somebody did something really skillful, they say Messi or Ronaldo. And we used to say to each other, Francisco Mourinho. And now this we've shared with ourselves I mean, we've grown into old men for 45 years. Can you believe it? So, I mean, I moved to Lancaster. We might not have seen each other for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. But whenever we meet, this is a strange bond between us. We just forget everything when we just call each other Francisco Mourinho. And now the funniest thing is, about 10, 12 years ago, your brother, with your late father, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him, took him to Hajj. And I was there as well. We went with different groups. And we bumped into each other in Makkah Sharif or Medina Sharif, I can't remember. And it was such an unusual place to meet. And as we normally do, we were about to say Francis, and then we realized perhaps this isn't the appropriate place to be greeting one another with that name. But it just shows you, we've got that special name for one another. So I wanted actually our viewers to come up with stories like that. So over to you, Masha. We've only got a few minutes left. Please share us some of your own memories of nicknames that you've given to people, or perhaps they've given to you.
Absolutely. I mean, in the 80s when we were growing up, I think everybody names were shortened. So I mean, one, God rest his soul, we used to call him Splat. Now we don't know where the name came from. He's no longer with us. That was a very unusual one. Ashi will remember him, Muhammad Arshad. So we all used to hang around together. So that was a very unusual name. But he was affectionately known as Splat. So even when you were sat amongst people, you'd say, oh, Splat this and Splat that. Another name we had was Amjad. He lives down in London now. Pervez brothers, do you remember them?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, their younger brother, he was called, we used to call him Zabalula.
Never knew that.
Now, yeah, he had curlyish hair, and I don't know where it came from, but he started being called Zabalula. That was one of the things. Another friend of ours, God rest his soul, he's no longer with us, a mad Man United fan like yourself.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and Mahmood, Munich.
Mahmood.
Yeah, we ended up calling him Munich.
Yeah. Now that is, in a way, quite a naughty name, actually, because the story behind Munich is a very tragic one. And it shows you partly the sense of humor, but also the cruelty of young people. Mash, we've only got 30 seconds left. I'm really sorry to interrupt. I've got to sum this up. So, dear viewers, thank you very much for your contributions. Thank you for watching. So, to sum up, it seems to me that what we have learned that in the final analysis, as long as the nickname is not disrespectful and the person approves of it, it may not be considered un-Islamic. There is no harm. The harm is only un-Islamic when it becomes disrespectful, derogatory, and hurtful to the other people. So carry on calling each other what you please, as long as the other person is happy as well. Thank you once again for watching. Thank you to Vakas. Thank you to Mash. Thank you for all the people who've taken the trouble to ring. Please keep calling. Inshallah, we will be back with you next week with a very prominent gentleman. The subject of cricket will be coming up, because we will be hopefully talking to Qasim Ali, who is the manager of the Dubai cricket team. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Take care.